Okay, this is a quick video for Assignment 8 for MUS 106, Introduction to Mixing. First thing you'll have to do is to go to the 106 course page and download the session tracks for Assignment 8. You will need to sign on with your mcc.edu account to access those tracks. Since that can take a while, I have already downloaded and unzipped all of the tracks. They're right here. There's 41 of them, quite a few. So what I'm going to do is open up Pro Tools. I'm just going to use my standard settings and create a new session called Assignment 8. I'm saving mine on the desktop. You can save yours on storage drive. Then I am going to select all of the audio data that's in here, and I'm going to import that to the start of the session, bar 1, part 1, and if I actually grab it, it should insert. Oh, well, there we go. And we'll just take them all back. Okay, so I've got that. Now we need to start editing this session so that it can be usable and we can start mixing. So the first thing we need to do is to create groups for all of the drum tracks. So the drum tracks are going to be things like kick, live kick, snare, rack, through down to different other parts. We've got all the drum tracks right here through number 7. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select them all. Then I'm going to hit Command G to create a group. I'm going to call this drums. If I notice there's something else that I need in there, over under available, I can create a different track that I can add to that group by selecting it and putting it in there. So we've got drums has kicks, snares, toms, hat. I need to add shaker, 808, claps, and tambourine. So there's shaker, tambourine, 808, and claps. We're going to add those to the drum group. And is there anything else in here? No. Okay. So I'll hit that. And now I've created a group. Yay! Then I can create groups for other tracks as well. So first, though, I'm going to move all those over so that they're in the same place. So shaker, tam, 808, claps. I like to move them so that they are closer to the other drum tracks. So I'm just going to drag them up next to the hat. And then another thing that you can do that I highly recommend in order to keep everything straight, I'm going to select claps all the way to kick. And then with all of them selected, I'm going to give them a new color. So I think I'll make my drums brown. I don't know why, I'm just doing that. Okay, other groups that I need to have are overheads. So overheads and room, that's pretty easy. I've got my overheads and my room. So I will make sure that those are currently in the group and then check and see if there's anything else that says overheads or room. And it looks like that's good, so we're going to call that overheads. And that is group B. And I'm going to hit OK. Give that a new color. How about yellow? I need guitars, so that's slide, wah, riffs, and bass parts. So guitar, bass guitar, guitar. Then I've got the riffs, wahs, more wahs, and slides. And it looks like that's about it. We'll scroll down. Nope, we're good there. So I will hit Command G to group those. I'm going to call that guitars. And hit OK. Move them up above that cash register, which we'll use for effects. Guitar starts with G, so does green, so we'll create that as a green color. Again, colors are totally up to you. I'm just doing what works for me. Next, we need keyboards. which are piano, other piano, and these are not next to each other, so I'm going to hold down Command when I select them, because I've got the strings in the way. So piano, organ. Oh, actually, strings and chorus strings are part of the key group, so never mind. I will deselect that. I'm just going to select all of them then. And chorus strings and organ. Is there anything else after that? No. All right. So Command G, and we'll call that keys. Hit OK. And let's make that, I don't know, how about red? Move it up. Then I need horns. So there are my horns. I only have horns. Do I have any more horns? No. All right, well, I'm not going to bother grouping that, but I will give it a different color. How about super blue? Then I need the effect is the cash register. So, okay, well, create an effect. Actually, I will create a group for the horns. I'll be good. Follow the assignment exactly. Then, move that under there. I need the other part, the vocals. So the lead, the hooks, the libs, and the Pablo effects. So Command G, vocals. And that looks good, and we'll color that violet for vocals. And just to make sure I've got everything similar to how it is in the actual assignment, I'm going to move this all the way up to the very top. So I've got vocals for the first group. Then I need overheads. So we'll move overheads groups up. And nope, that didn't select everything. Fine. And let's redo that set to colors. All right, there it is. Got to hold down Shift to make sure I've got everything. Okay, followed by guitars, keyboards, horns. So guitars, keys, horns, effects, and then drums are at the bottom. So I'm just going to drag all of these up above the drums, and we should be set for how the session is laid out on the assignment. There we go. Okay. So now in the groups category, I can bring that up by pulling down here, and I've got my groups. I can select none with Alt, or I can select all by just clicking the all. And then this is really useful. If I go to step 4, I select all, then I go to the mix window. So all of my tracks, all 41 of them, are currently selected. Because I'm using the groups, if I move the volume on 1, they all go down to 0. This is how you want it to be when you start mixing, because you tend to mix from the bottom. So start with something really, really low and then raise it up. So I'm going to deselect all of my groups. I'm also going to deselect all my tracks. And then what I want to do is I want to start with the lowest possible sound. That is going to usually be the drums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my drums, which remember are brown. I'm going to start with my kick, or possibly my live kick. Start with the kick first. So I'm going to hit play. And I'm going to slowly bring that up until I can hear it. Okay, so I've got that roughly where I think I want it. Now I'm going to bring up my live kick slowly until they have a good balance between the two. Remember, it doesn't have to go to unity or 0. In fact, I've got my volume for the kick at plus 1.9. So I might have to reduce that. In any case, it will go to the level you decide to do, as long as you don't have any groups selected, and that's important. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so I've got the 2 kicks roughly where I want them, and I'm going to keep doing that until I've got all of the other drum parts loaded up. All right, I might have to go back to the beginning to find some of that rack tom. And we're going to go back, check the 808. All right, let's hear the 808 in place. I want to really hear the sound of that with the kicks. Okay, so I've got a really nice and heavy and easily set drums. Everything can be heard. I could go through, I could pan stuff, but the other thing I can do is then move on to the next thing. So the next thing I would work on after the drums would be going through all these other parts. So the overheads next, then the guitars, then the keys, then the effects, then the horns and the vocal. And as I go through and I mix each group, what I'm going to do that's very important is I'm going to select a group that I've just finished mixing, like the drums. I'm going to mute them. And the reason why I'm going to do that, and then turn that off, is because then I'm going to go to my overheads. So my overheads, there we are. I'm going to start with those and do the exact same process. Okay, and then if I've got my overheads in a place where I want them, I'm going to select both groups, drums and overheads. And now I'm going to unmute those. I'm going to return to 0 on the counter, very beginning. Now I'm going to check the balance between these two groups. So I've got my overheads and I've got my drums. Okay. I think it sounds pretty good, but it might be a little bit too boomy on the drums. So what I can do is, because I have the group selected, if I move one fader, it will move everything down. So it keeps the same proportions between, say, the kick, the live kick, the snare. I'm not moving the individual faders, I'm moving the entire groups down because this is selected here. Now, as you can see, I just kind of bumped my overhead mono all the way to the top, and then everything else kind of kept going with it. If I hold down the Alt key, that will take everything back to the beginning, but if I hold down Command, I can get little parts. And then, if I hold down Control, I can move one fader independently. So that gives you 3 different things you can do. But then, as soon as I take my hand off Control, everything goes back to where it was supposed to be. So I really want to just add in a little bit more room noise. I can hold down Control to do that, and then take everything down by just taking my fingers off and making sure that that group is selected here for overheads. So that's what you would do. You would go through, you would then mute both groups that you've done until you go to the next. So the next one is going to be guitars. We don't want to have that activated just yet. We would want to go through and do the same process with the guitars and set the levels between the individual guitars and all of that. Now you might have noticed that I have a clipping indicator here on the master. That is something you're going to have to do at the end. So after you've got all of the individual sections mixed and you have a clear mix for those, what you're going to want to do is go to the very last track and add one stereo master fader. So now you can see I'm peaking like crazy at +4. Wow. So once I've got everything mixed as groups, I would want to tone down all of the groups so that I'm no longer peaking. So let's take that down, unmute it, and then go back here and take that down considerably and unmute. Using too many fingers. All right, clear the clipping indicator. Okay, and now I'm peaking at -2.7, so I've got quite a bit of headroom still. I would eventually want to make sure that nothing goes above 0, but worst case scenario, I can always take stuff down or add a limiter if I have to, but that's kind of cheating. You know, this is mixing, not post-production yet. So you would go through and do that with every single group. Create the individual group mix, mute it, edit the other group mixes, and then you would edit the volume differences between the group mixes. Another thing that will help considerably if you want to get into it is doing a little bit of panning. But remember, the panning, unlike the other parts of the group, is a little bit different. The panning by default is individual for every single track. So I can pan my kick, my live kick, my snare top and snare bottom should probably be in about the same position. And then move around my toms. I am just doing this at random, of course, but that will position everything. And then, of course, if I hold down Option and click on it, I can reset it to the default. So go ahead, create the individual group mixes, then mix the groups together with each other, and check your master fader to make sure that your vocals are clear, sitting on top, and nothing is distorted or peaking or going red. If your vocals are not as present as they should be, you can add a little bit of an effect or use a little bit of extra gain to help boost their presence. I would recommend looking at EQ and boosting probably the higher parts of the EQ curve. You're going to be looking at around 10 to 20K is really kind of the presence range for vocals. That is always a good place to look. The other thing you can do with vocals is to add just a hair of delay. If you use anything around 30 milliseconds to maybe about 14 milliseconds, it will just make it sound a little bit wider and fatter than it normally would be. It's a very classic studio technique. However, do not add reverb to the vocals because reverb is going to push whatever has reverb applied to it into the background of the mix. So save that for doing another project. But that is assignment 8. Good luck with it, and I hope to see what you come up with. This is a really challenging one, so take your time and go slow. All right.